welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, our program that brings you all the latest news and events happening inside the Black Continent. My name is Angie Meher. I'll be joining you for today, and of course to start straight away with a look at the news making the headlines. The recent round of talks between Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan concerning, of course, the disputed Ethiopian dam has been cancelled after Khartoum skipped Monday's meeting in objection to not receiving a response to its request to grant experts participating in the negotiations a greater role. We have more details in this report. A tripartite meeting between Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia terminated on Monday due to the absence of Sudan. A statement from the Egyptian Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation said the meeting, which was held upon an invitation from the Ethiopian side, was attended by water ministers from Egypt and Ethiopia, technical and legal delegations from the two countries, observers and experts assigned by the African Union Commission. This negotiation round aimed at discussing the controversial points of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. It has been agreed that the next round of negotiations is expected to be held at the end of the week to consider the outcomes of the tripartite negotiations. Sudanese news agency reported that the Sudanese Minister of Irrigation and Water Resources and the Sudanese Minister of Foreign Affairs took part in the ministerial meeting held on January the 3rd. The meeting was chaired by South African Minister of International Cooperation, given that South Africa is currently the chair of the African Union, mediating the negotiations. As for the content of the meeting, it focused on Sudan's proposal aimed at making the negotiations more effective by enlarging the role of the AU through its experts. The goal is reaching a legal binding agreement. It is noted that the AU experts have already drafted one that should be satisfactory to the three sides. The AU called Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan for a meeting on January the 3rd to discuss the issue of the dam. The meeting is the first after talks had been suspended for a month and is taking place as South Africa concludes its chairmanship of the Union. In a phone call on Saturday, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and his South African counterpart and African Union Chair Ramaphosa confirmed that the tripartite talks on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam were ongoing. President Sisi reaffirmed the fundamentals of the Egyptian stance, mandating the crystallization of a legal binding agreement among Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt on the rules of dam operation and reservoir filling. The president stressed that the Nile water is an existential problem for Egypt and its people, expressing appreciation for the efforts deployed by President Ramaphosa. For his side, the AU chair praised Egypt's endeavors to reach solutions to the disagreement, asserting that continuous coordination among both countries over the next period to conclude a fair and balanced agreement. And continuing with our news, the election authority at the Central African Republic announced on Monday that Faustin Touadera was re-elected as the president with more than 53% of the votes. The president has been in power since 2016 but has struggled to seize control of vast parts of the nation due to armed militias. We have more details in this report. President Faustin Touadera has won the Central African Republic's December 27th presidential election by securing more than 53% of the votes in the first round. According to provisional results announced by the Electoral Commission on Monday, he's received the absolute majority of the vote in the first round and was declared winner. The election was marred by a coordinated offensive by rebel groups who tried to disrupt the vote after former President Francois Bozizé's candidacy was rejected by the country's highest court. Attacks and the destruction of voting materials, including on election day, prevented voting in several towns. The election authority said that of the country's electorate, or around 910,000 people, had registered to vote, and turnout among the registered voters was 76.3%. And scientists in the United Kingdom said on Monday that a variant of the COVID-19 virus identified in South Africa is more problematic than the mutation found in the United Kingdom. The British Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the variant found in South Africa was especially concerning. We have the details. South Africa said it hoped to obtain doses of COVID-19 vaccinations as early as next month, but this will depend on the success of ongoing negotiations with the pharmaceutical companies. The government is aiming to vaccinate a minimum of 67% of the population, approximately 40.3 million citizens, by the end of the year. The health minister said the government had so far secured enough doses to immunize 10% of the population. He said in a news conference that rolling out the vaccines had to be handled with urgency. He added the government was negotiating with all vaccine manufacturers as well as companies willing to make vaccines available sooner. A new, faster spreading coronavirus variant had been detected that is believed to be driving the surge in infections. Meanwhile, scientists in the United Kingdom said they were not fully confident that COVID-19 vaccines will work on the new variant in South Africa. British Health Secretary Matt Hancock said he was now very worried about the stand found in South Africa. Scientists, including BioNTech and the University of Oxford, have said they're testing the vaccinations on the new variants and say they could make any required tweaks in around 6 weeks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest for this afternoon, Dr. Rami Aziz, Professor of Microbiology from the Faculty of Pharmaceuticals. Dr. Rami, a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year. We are still in the New Year.
Likewise, Dr. Rami. Now, a new coronavirus variant found in South Africa is becoming a bit of a source of concern and a bigger problem really for scientists who say that the vaccines may not be effective to combat the specific strain. First of all, let's talk a bit about why this virus has mutated in the way that it has, and what could you tell us about this new variant?
So, first of all, the virus mutates all the time. There is a regular mutation rate for the coronavirus in general, which is actually less than other RNA viruses, so it doesn't mutate as fast, but it has to keep mutating while it's replicating. So why it is mutating a lot? Because there is a lot of people infected. So the more you give the virus a chance to replicate in people's lungs and noses, it will keep mutating. So the best way to make it not mutate is to decrease the exposure and social distancing and everything. Now the question is why this variant is especially of concern. So the mutations, as we said, they happen randomly, but this time the one in South Africa, there were 3 mutations in the spike gene that is actually producing the protein that enters the cell. So most of the target of the vaccine is to stop this protein from entering the cell. You are trying to block it. And we are blocking it with antibodies that try to hold this protein. So if the protein changes its shape significantly, the antibodies will not be able to bind to it. But we shouldn't be concerned yet, because the protein is big, and even if a small piece of it has changed, there is still many other places that the immune system can handle. So I hope I gave you a comprehensive result.
Indeed, yes you did, Dr. Rami. Now, tell me, so why are the scientists more worried about the variant in South Africa compared, for example, to the variant in the United Kingdom? What are the differences between them?
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I was one of the people who were not very excited when there was a lot of fear about the English variant, because I thought it was a bit exaggerated. But the one in South Africa needs to be monitored. Again, I don't want to panic at all.
Yes.
But we just have to monitor it because it has 3 changes in the area where the spike protein binds to its receptor. So this is why scientists are concerned, because this is the exact area that we want to block. So there is a little bit of concern, but again, I can tell you that the vaccines that are available, they target many other regions. And for example, the Sinopharm vaccine, for example, which is about to be available in Egypt, it targets the entire virus, not just the spike protein. So far there is like we say, cautious optimism. So we should stay optimistic, but with caution.
Right. Speaking about optimism, 2020 ended on rather positive notes of a new vaccination or the vaccinations being rolled out, etc. Is there any scientific proof, Dr. Rami, that the South African strain is more dangerous or contagious or less effective to the vaccine?
Okay, very good question, but I need to answer each part of it.
Go ahead.
So first, transmissible. We have some hypothesis that the newer variants, whether the British or the South African, may be spreading faster. But again, it's not easy to prove this without putting them in an experiment in comparison with the older version of the variant. And in general, also, when the virus is more transmissible, in general, it gets less virulent. It gets less harmful to the body because the virus wants to spread very quickly among people, so it stays more in the nasal cavity than in the lungs. In general, this is not a rule, but in many cases. However, the question, the other part of the question is there proof that it escapes the vaccine? I think until yesterday, at least, there is no proof, and the scientists who produce the different vaccines are currently testing. They try to neutralize the viruses. And as I told you, in my opinion, it will be very, very unlikely that all the antibodies cannot bind. So maybe maybe it will be a little bit less effective against this variant, but I'm actually optimistic. So
good, Doctor. We need some optimism these days. Let me ask you one more question, Doctor. Now, the vaccinations that are available, how long do you think it will be before, after people start getting vaccinated, that we will be able to get some sort of control on the spreading of COVID-19?
So a very good question, too. So there are two factors. First, on the individual level. So once, let's say I took the vaccine tomorrow.
Yes.
When it will start protecting me, it will take at least 3-4 weeks, especially if the vaccine requires another dose. So it may take 6 weeks to be fully protected as a person. As a community, we need to have so many members of the community vaccinated. And this is what we heard all the time, the expression of herd immunity. But, however, every person who gets vaccinated decreases the speed of the virus transmission, you know. And every person who does not get vaccinated, it's the opposite. So I hope once the vaccine is available, that many people, especially who are exposed, medical fields and those who have to work every day, they should take it quickly. But it's not a super, it's not like Superman. It's not the moment that you take the vaccine,
of
you
course.
can... You
and
have
the vaccine,
to wait.
yes, Doctor, allow me to ask you, the vaccine is not a treatment. It is a preventative medicine. Is that correct? So it means you can get vaccinated, but still get the virus, just weaker. Is that correct?
So the vaccine will protect from disease, not from infection, which means you may carry the virus, but not have any symptoms. So the vaccine means maybe some people will still be able to infect others, so we will still have to wear masks for a while. But most people who took the vaccine didn't develop symptoms, only very small proportion. And even those who developed symptoms, as you said, they were much milder. But because I know some people heard the story in the news, if somebody is infected 3 days before taking the vaccine, and then this person takes the vaccine, he will still develop symptoms because the vaccine needs, as I said, 3-4 weeks to produce antibodies in the body.
Okay, Doctor, now, of course, aside from the elderly or medical practitioners, people in the medical field, people with chronic diseases, etc., are there any other groups that should, take precautions before getting the vaccination?
Everybody should take. We all should keep the physical distancing and taking it very seriously now. There are now 2 reasons to do that. One is not to be sick, and the other one is not to allow the virus to replicate and have more variants. So we have 2 reasons to be careful. And then once we are vaccinated, I hope that quickly the transmission will decrease until it will end, inshallah.
God willing, indeed. Dr. Rami Aziz is a professor of microbiology, Faculty of Pharmaceuticals. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us and for your insight. And that's all the time we have for today. Ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up this edition of Africa Today. My name is Angie Mehameni. Thanks for watching.